What's up, spiritual gangsters? This is your OGs, Trice
and Rane.
Welcome to another episode of Trybe Vibes.
Let's get into it.
So, we're on our, fifth part of talking about gratitude?
Oh,
yeah. So, today, this episode is going to be centered around mindfulness and gratitude.
Oh.
We're going to see how those relate. And the conversation is going to be centered around this article that I have called The Tao Mindful Living Through Gratitude. You can find it on renewedfreedomcenter.com, and it's by Jenny C. Yip. November 1st, 2012 is when she published it. So the article starts off by saying, life is both precious and painful at the same time. We rarely appreciate the beauty of our existence until we are faced with misfortune. Though suffering is painful, it does not have to be a meaningless, wasted causality. You can either be better or bitter. The choice is yours. Suffering can lead to gratitude if you surrender to it. Through mindful living, the origins of mindfulness has roots in Eastern thought. The Chinese term it Taoism, the Japanese term it Zen. Some have associated it with the practice of yoga, and others have associated with religion of Buddhism. However, Tao, in its purest sense, is not religion or philosophy, nor is it psychology or any other type of science. Simply put, Tao is a way and view of life. Mindfulness is part of the way of life to reduce suffering.
Wow.
So, that was just the introduction.
So, in Taoism, it's close to Buddhism, where it's basically mind over matter.
Right. In the mindfulness.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's just more about they both have the mindful living in mind. If that makes sense.
Let's rewind a little bit. Mindfulness. What does that mean to you? I know they talked about it here, but for me, mindfulness is being aware and present in the moment and choosing the most positive outcome. If that makes sense. It's like if I'm in a situation and there's confusion or anger or whatever, mindfulness would be me stopping, taking account of, where I am, who I am. It's a big part. Taking a breath and then acting with a pre-thought. Does that make sense?
I think mindfulness is just living in the now.
Sure, if you say it all cute like that.
Just being in the present moment. But what I liked about the intro was the part where she said, though suffering is painful, it does not have to be a meaninglessly wasted causality. You can either be better or bitter. The choice is yours.
I like that. You can be better?
And suffering, you can be better or you can be bitter. And although suffering is painful, it's a causality, but does it have to be a meaningless one? Does it have to be a wasted one? Are you going to be better from it? Or are you going to be bitter? Because I feel like when people go through stuff, you have that choice. People be like, oh, bitter baby mamas, right, or bitter bitches, or, all that petty shit. You do have a choice. Are you going to be better from the situation and grow? Or are you going to be bitter? And most of the time when people decide bitter, they end up being in their own suffering. And they conflict their own suffering. It's like that. Yeah, they create their own suffering that's continuous. It's like something happened to you that was bad or that caused you suffering. But when that moment was over, you had a choice to learn from it and move on. When you decide to be bitter because of it and not be grateful for the situations you were in, instead of taking it in and being better, you're having this lingering suffering that's going to be attached to the emotion of bitterness. And you're just going to drag that like a bag lady. Yeah. You're just going to drag it.
That's what we talk about. Negativity creates negativity, and positivity creates positivity. It's how you view the situation or choose to view the situation and react to it. Like, don't.
And just as she said, the choice is yours. The choice is yours. Suffering can lead to gratitude if you surrender to the suffering.
Yes. Don't wake up and choose violence all the time.
No, don't wake up and choose violence. And then she continues on to say, all things in the world come from being, and being comes from non-being, as said Lao Tzu. This is the essence of what we have come to know today as mindfulness, learning to let go and be without thought, without judgment, without mind. Use mindfulness to let go of suffering and reach gratitude by being in the present moment. Anxiety is future. Depression is past. We cannot change the past, and we have no guarantees for the future. Mindful living in the now allows us to be present and experience the passing of time. Whatever emotion or thought you are experiencing, whether positive or negative, over time has to pass. The moment you read these words has just passed. Try to hold on to it. You cannot. This is what is meant by this too shall pass. Every moment is moving toward the next moment.
Yes. Well, that better explains mindfulness than what I was rambling about by by being present in the moment. So this is saying, well, it's my interpretation. It's like basically gratefulness ties in because if you are present in the moment and you get to actually see what you do have, that's that taking stock and taking account for everything that's going on around you and who you are, then that helps you to be grateful for what you do have or situations that you can learn from. Is that?
I like the part where she says anxiety is the future and depression is the past, because if we harp on what's going to happen in the future, that's what creates anxiety. And when we harp on the past and the things that we did and what we could have done better, that causes depression. But if we live in the moment that's right now, it's like it's the only fair middle ground. Number one. And it brings us to the present moment, because with emotions are very fleeting. I think that's the major thing I get out of this. Emotions are very fleeting. And sometimes when you just don't give your emotions energy and you just kind of let it be and you just become mindful in the present, most of your emotions will pass. Yeah, they'll come back and they'll go and they'll come back because you're going to forever be evolving. But sometimes when you just sit and focus on the now, you can just let your emotions and your thoughts and your anxieties and your everything you were thinking about just kind of like just pass away. Just like how she was trying to say, like the words that I'm reading, just like the words that you're hearing right now, you can't hold on to them.
Right. Let's keep going.
It's in an evolving cycle of time.
I have seen a lot of stuff having to do with mindfulness talk about emotions. And I understand what you're saying, like don't live by your emotions, which I completely agree with. But I have a feeling like being mindful is just giving it attention in a way that it's like your emotions are showing you what's going on in that situation, like how you should react. If you're angry, then there's some type of injustice you feel. If you're sad, then there's some type of grief that goes on. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that we should completely ignore our emotions, but like recognizing that they are fleeting and being mindful of that, mindfulness, then
I think we can agree that they're like signals for bigger issues. Not something we should harp on and hold on to and never let go, but something for discovery and then moving on.
That doesn't mean ignoring them completely, because that definitely causes, depression and anxiety if you're holding on to stuff. It's like you're emotionally constipated. You know what I mean?
She actually talks more about emotions, and then we can get back to that. She says, remember the phrase time heals? The passage of time leads to the fading of our emotional experiences, whether positive or negative. Just stay with the present moment and observe your emotions non-judgmentally, rather than giving more meaning to the negative thought than what it's worth, or appraising the emotion with more value than what it's worth. Focus on the now to let time pass and the healing begin. No one thing can ever be static. Everything evolves and passes, and time cannot be recycled. So she did hit it when she said, rather than giving more meaning to the negative thought than it's worth, or appraising the emotion with more value than it's worth, focus on the now. So it's not just with negative emotions. They're saying being mindful is coming back to center.
Oh, yeah. Humble
You're
yourself.
Yeah, you're humbling. You're not giving more meaning to a negative thought, and you're not appraising any emotions for more. And she said for more than what it's worth.
They are signals. That's what we have to remind ourselves. They are not like a reward. They're not a punishment. They are signals.
Focus on the now.
What's going on right now. And that end part, time cannot be recycled. Time is not real.
Everything evolves and passes, and time cannot be recycled.
Time is not real. It doesn't matter what happens, in the past or in the future. You know what I mean?
And I do feel like time does feed our emotional experiences. Obviously, if something is continuously bothering you, then, it's something you have to deal with. But I feel like overall, most of our emotions get faded over time. I feel like that's true, like that whole time heals thing.
Yeah. Well, only if you let the emotion pass, because that's not always the case. People are still mad about... I was talking to this dude one time, and he was upset about something that happened when he was 5. I'm like, bro, you're 33. You can't still be on 10 about this. You know what I mean? Like, it depends on the person. He didn't realize that his emotions were signals. He held on to it like it was a token, and he ran with it.
And that's the point where people need, whether you need therapy, you need to do some shadow work, you need to get to the core of things. Because if you're still harping about things that happened 10 years ago, something is not right.
Are still strong.
Something's going on.
Are still blaring for you.
You got to take a pause.
It's deeper than that. Practice mindfulness. Talk to somebody, because it shouldn't hold that much stock.
Right. And if it is, it must be terrible trauma.
Oh, sorry. In this particular situation.
Oh, you talk about the guy. It really wasn't trauma.
It really
was some bullshit.
But that's that situation.
But then again, nobody can tell somebody else how meaningful or meaningless something that happened to them in their life was.
Let me check.
So you got to give them some grace. Check yourself. Give them a little bit of grace now.
I was like...
Everyone has different levels. If I feel and that's where the embarrassment comes sometimes too, because people stay trying to compare other people's trauma. It's the trauma you had is not about who had it worse. It's not a competition. Lots of times people do that. Your hood wasn't that bad. I used to live here, and this used to be so worse, and blah 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 blah. People, it's bad enough we have to live in hoods, let alone we're comparing which hood is dirtier or which one had more crime. That is such an
American mentality, I understand, be proud of your
competition
stars or whatever, but it's not a who suffered the most competition. Do you know what I mean?
Who was in the mud the hardest? Yeah. Who was out here in the mud the most?
I worked 60 hours this week and I only slept for 2 hours. Why do you go lay down? Why is that?
Right.
You know what I mean?
But that's a badge of honor in our society. The fact that
it's not. That's not what we should be measuring.
It's a badge of honor, I feel in our society. It's if you work 80 hours a week and you came from nothing, and then you were this, and you had no parents, and then you did this, and you did this. It's and I'm not saying it's I'm getting on the people that have gone through these things, but what I am saying is everyone has trauma. You can't really compare what everyone has been through. You know, you kind of have to get to a space where it's like you're more worried about yourself.
Well, yes, stay in your lane.
Yeah, like stay in your lane. Present. You don't have to like, you don't have to go tit for tat with people about like who had it the worst. Because I don't know, I just don't see no merit in that. If anything, you would want to be helping each other out and evolving into like, and helping each other grow, not like argue about like who had it the worst. And everyone knows I'm talking about like particular people.
I got a couple of names that I can
do shit like this. Yeah. So, getting out of all that, because that's a whole nother long conversation, I'll continue on with the
Mindfulness.
The article. So, she continues to say there's no definitive achievement of mindfulness, especially when the essence of it is to empty your mind. Mindfulness is just a state of being without adding unnecessary judgments of good or bad value. However, since this can be rather challenging, it is important to recognize and be mindful that one cannot exist without the other. With good comes bad. Similarly, without pain, one will not comprehend what is pleasure. To reach gratitude is to appreciate the fundamental understanding. This is the Tao of mindful living. So basically, like, they're just saying, like, mindfulness is just being at a state of balance. And I feel like our gratitude brings us back to that state and helps us be mindful.
We use gratitude to be mindful and achieve that balance. Yeah.
And we use mindfulness to be grateful also. Because you're being, it goes around in a whole full circle.
But that...
Right. Because you're grateful for the good and the bad and the duality that, like, if I had like it's like the string that holds like life together, the good and the bad and everything, where we can come to a place of centerness before we start expanding again, I would say would be gratitude. And mindfulness can help you reach that stage.
I think I understand. It's just the string caught me off guard.
The string. I'm a visual thinker.
Okay. No, I understand. Okay, I understand what you mean.
The thread that binds. And then at the end of the article, the last thing she says is, with this awareness, I choose to be better by seeing the beauty from the pain. I refuse to allow my suffering to be a wasted causality. I am grateful for all things, grand and trivial. Most importantly, I am grateful for pain I have experienced, so I may truly appreciate the magnificence of life.
I like that, where she was like reminding herself at the end of that. Yeah, at the end she was like, it kind of sounded like a mantra, where it's like, I'm grateful for all things grand and trivial. I'm grateful for the pain. I'm grateful for the pleasure. Something like that. I like that. We do have to keep reminding ourselves and sometimes like speak it into existence.
Because all of it is a part of the magnificence of life. And I feel like when you're mindful, you can sit and you can actually appreciate the now in life. And I think that's the whole point of gratitude and mindfulness. It's taking back and appreciating the now and being mindful for the now instead of worrying about the past, worrying about the future, putting too much stock on your emotions. Like, you're just like, I'm only worried about now.
Let's deal with it.
This is what's happening. This is my life. And that's it. So I guess I want to end this with a quote.
By whom?
That I can't find. Oh yeah, I can find it. It's by John Kabat-Zinn. He says, take a breath of gratitude. There's always something to be thankful for, even if it's simply that you are breathing and you know you are breathing. So be grateful that you're breathing and you know that you're breathing.
Not yet.
You're not dead yet.
I know we went, mindfulness can be like a whole other topic. We can go ham for sure.
For sure, okay.
If you guys want us to go more into mindfulness or have any questions that you want us to go into, definitely let us know. But in the meantime, coming up, we have some tools and mantras in the tail ends of this gratitude series that you guys should definitely check out. But at the end of the day, I hope you got something out of this.
Remember, we are experts of nothing, just out here in these streets. We learn from you, just as you learn from us, because we are a tribe.
Until next time.
Continue to vibe.